Hello and welcome to Written Words and Lesson 3, Read All About It. In this lesson, we're going to explore the different types of newspaper available in the UK and the differences in the news reporting styles in those papers. In the UK, there are lots of different newspapers, but they can be broadly divided into three main groups. The first group is the broadsheets, also known as the quality press. And this group includes papers such as The Times, The Guardian and The Independent. And they got their name because of the large-sized paper they used to be printed on. Most of them eventually adopted this smaller tabloid size simply because it's easier to read. Although, of course, many people now read the online versions. And these papers provide more serious intellectual content, and their style of writing is aimed at the educated reader. Then there are the tabloids, also known as the popular press, and these include papers such as the Daily Mail, the Sun, the Daily Mirror, and their writers favour sensationalist headlines, very often written as here in very large capital letters, often using provocative language, celebrity gossip, and easy reading human interest stories which often feature polarised points of view. Then there are regional papers. As the name suggests, these newspapers are specific to a particular region. Most towns in the UK will have their own paper for local news. This is my local paper. The writing style in these papers is usually kept fairly simple to cater for all levels of reader. Now let's take a closer look at some of the language used in the different kinds of newspaper. We're going to take one article from the Daily Mail and compare it with an article from the Independent on the same subject. At the time of recording this lesson, the Football World Cup was just beginning, and in addition to the football news, the papers were particularly concerned with the controversial issue of whether the World Cup should or shouldn't have taken place in Qatar. So these articles look at some of the controversy surrounding that issue. The Daily Mail article begins with a short headline, just 3 words, Qatar's rainbow clampdown. And as we've already mentioned, the headline is in capital letters. And not only is it in capital letters, but it uses a word that is particularly provocative. The word clampdown. A clampdown means that something has been banned or forbidden. And what's been forbidden? The rainbow. Why would you forbid a rainbow? Why would a rainbow be banned? A rainbow is something pretty. It's something nice. They've used the rainbow because it's a very visual symbol. It's the symbol of the Pride movement and LGBTQ plus rights. But it's very visual and it's very easy to understand. But it's also something very nice and very pretty that you wouldn't necessarily associate with a clampdown. So already the headline is very provocative, trying to provoke a reaction in the readers. Qatar's conservative regime has been clamping down on pro-LGBT football fans with rainbow bucket hats, t-shirts and flags. As Harry Redknapp had his say and declared today, "I just want to get on and enjoy the football. If you feel that strongly, don't play or don't go." The farcical row over Harry Kane and other captains facing a ban from the pitch for wearing a rainbow armband has spilled over into the stadiums of Doha. Last night, former Wales captain Laura McAllister was among female football fans who were told to take off their rainbow bucket hats at the Qatari stadium ahead of the Dragons' first match. Men, however, were allowed to keep them on. Each short paragraph from the beginning of this article mentions the name of a celebrity. In the first paragraph, we have Harry Redknapp. Then, in the second paragraph, we have Harry Kane, the captain of the English men's football team. And then in the third paragraph, we have the captain of the Welsh women's football team, Laura McAllister. So 3 very well-known people, 3 celebrities. And we have some quotes. We have a quote from Harry Redknapp expressing his opinion, "I just want to get on with the football." The second paragraph has no quote, but we're told that Harry Kane, a very well-known figure, was banned from wearing his rainbow armband. It's again provoking a reaction from the reader. And in the third paragraph, not only is it suggesting that pro-LGBT fans are being discriminated against, but also women are being discriminated against because the women were told to remove their rainbow hats, but the men were not told to remove them. It's emphasising unfairness, it's trying to outrage the reader. Then in the Independent article, the headline is "Everything Wrong with the Qatar World Cup." Again, it's quite opinionated. It's not in capital letters, and it's not quite so short, so it's not quite as provocative as the Daily Mail article. The article reads, "Out of the many facts and figures circulated about Qatar's problems, there is one realisation that should stand above everything. It is a disgrace that in 2022 a country can host a World Cup where it has lured millions of people from the poorest countries on earth, often under false pretences, and then forced them into what many call modern slavery. And yet this has just been accepted. The World Cup carries on, an end product of a structure that is at once Orwellian and Kafkaesque. A huge underclass of people work in an autocratic surveillance state amid an interconnected network of issues that make it almost impossible to escape. It's all so embedded," says Michael Page of Human Rights Watch. So the article begins with the mention of facts and figures. The facts and figures aren't listed just yet, although it is a very long article and there is much more information to come. But it is setting out to present itself as authoritative, as educated, and based on factual information. It isn't without its opinions. It has strong opinions. It mentions that this is a disgrace. It uses emotive words like lured. But it also uses more complex intellectual vocabulary. It talks about false pretenses and modern slavery, and although it hasn't actually defined what these mean just yet, it does go on to explain what the false pretenses are, what modern slavery is, and why this is classed as modern slavery. Then in the second paragraph, it references Orwellian and Kafkaesque. The writers George Orwell and Franz Kafka are more likely to be familiar to a more educated readership. And it goes on to use more complex terms such as an underclass, autocratic surveillance, an interconnected network. Much more complex vocabulary that will lead to discussion further on as the article progresses. And then there is a quote in this article, but this time not from a celebrity. This time it's from Michael Page, who represents the organisation Human Rights Watch. This quote is meant to sound more authoritative because this person is representing a respectable institution, an institution that is concerned with human rights. So we have one article that uses a more populist style, it uses simpler language, and it taps into celebrities and controversy to try to provoke a reaction from the reader. The second article is more complex, it is more discursive in style, it's not without its strong opinions, but it sets out to present itself as a well-researched essay rather than something simply designed to shock. In both of these articles, we've just seen that people's words have been quoted. So for our language section, we're going to look at the grammatical side of quoting speech. Quotation marks, also called inverted commas or speech marks, are used for quoting a person's exact words, whether they are spoken or written. Whether single quotation marks or double ones are used is generally a matter of style, and many large publications or institutions often have their own style manual which will set out their preferences for things such as that. Also, when we're quoting somebody's speech, each new person who speaks requires a new line. The words of one person and another person cannot be on the same line. When the next person starts speaking, they have to go onto a new line. It's also very important to take care where the punctuation is placed when you are quoting speech, because the rules are very strict about this. So let's look at a few examples. "I'm hungry," said the boy. In this sentence, the boy's words are quoted at the beginning of the sentence. So his words are enclosed in single quotation marks, and this is an exclamation, so there is an exclamation mark at the end of his words. And you will notice that the exclamation mark comes inside the quotation marks. And because we've got an exclamation mark, there is no need for a comma as well to separate off the quotation. The next sentence: "He ate a piece of cake only an hour ago," his sister declared. Again, the speech is quoted at the beginning of the sentence, so it's enclosed in quotation marks, but this time, instead of an exclamation mark, we have a comma to separate the speech from the rest of the text. And the comma is placed inside the quotation marks. In the next sentence, the comma is placed outside the quotation marks, and that's because the speech is reported at the end of the sentence. The boy responded furiously, "No, I did not." So after furiously we have a comma, and then the quotation marks separate off the speech. In the next sentence, the speech is again at the end, so the comma is outside the quotation marks. His sister pointed out, "It's obvious because there's chocolate on your face." And at the end of her speech, after the word face, there is a full stop, and the full stop is inside the quotation marks, just as the exclamation mark was in the previous sentence. Next sentence: "You can both have an apple," their mother suggested, "to keep you going until lunchtime." Here we have two lots of speech being quoted. We don't need a new line for each set of quoted speech here because it's the same person speaking. The first part, "You can both have an apple," then there is a comma inside the quotation marks, "their mother suggested," and then another comma to separate off the next lot of speech, "to keep you going until lunchtime." The mother's speech without the extra text in the middle reads, "You can both have an apple to keep you going until lunchtime." That's one whole sentence. So the second part of the speech doesn't need a capital letter at the beginning because it's still part of the mother's sentence. It's the middle of the sentence, so it only wants a lowercase t for the word to. For our writing prompt for this lesson, you are going to be a news reporter. Take a current or imaginary news topic and have a go at writing 2 short articles reporting the same story but in the 2 different styles that we've looked at in this lesson. So one should use simpler language and aim to induce some kind of reaction from the reader. And the other one should use more complex language. It should be more discursive, more like an essay in style. Do take a look at the worksheet for this lesson, which reinforces all the things we've discussed here, as well as a couple of ideas for further reading. Thank you very much for joining me in this lesson. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and in the meantime, happy writing.